Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Transforming Dementia Care Through Music, presented by Home Instead and hosted by the American Society on Aging. Before we begin, here are a few important notes. You can apply for your certificate immediately after the webinar using the tab above the presentation screen. Click Add Membership to select your certificate type or accreditation board. If you do not have a license number, enter NA. Click the How to Claim Credit tab for more details. Throughout the session, there will be checkpoints to ensure active engagement. Please disable your pop-up blocker and be ready to respond when prompted. Instructions for disabling pop-ups are available in the Reminders tab right below the streaming window. Ensure you are logged in with the email you register with. You must stay logged in and complete all checkpoints to receive a certificate. If you experience audio or video issues, try refreshing your browser. If the issue persists, use the Help tab for assistance. Presentation slides are available now in the Materials tab and can be accessed later in your classroom. A recording of this webinar will be available in your classroom within 48 hours. And if you have questions during the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A tab. We'll do our best to answer them in the final minutes of today's session. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Lakeland Eichenberger, a gerontologist and caregiving advocate for Honor and Home Instead, the world's largest provider of home care. With a PhD in gerontology from the University of Nebraska, Lakeland is dedicated to educating professionals, families, and communities on aging-related challenges and solutions. She has spoken nationally and internationally on caregiving and aging and serves as a trusted media resource on these critical topics. Lakeland, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I know there's some crazy weather happening across the United States right now, so I hope everyone is safe and doing well, but so grateful you're taking the time to join us for this topic that is so interesting to me, transforming dementia care through music. I don't know about you, but I am fascinated by the connection between dementia and music. You know, the part of our brain where we store music, it's kind of uniquely untapped for a lot of folks when it comes to the deterioration of the brain caused by the types of dementia. And so our guest speaker today, Tara Jenkins, is going to dive deep into this topic and provide some really valuable information. I'm so excited to learn from her. Tara is a board certified music therapist, a certified dementia practitioner, and certified in the Montessori dementia care professional way of providing care. She has over 17 years of experience in the dementia community, and she's the founder of her own company, Harmony in Dementia. She is recognized as an expert. She provides group and individual therapy services. She offers music consultation. She really is just a wealth of knowledge and a great resource to her local community and nationwide on this topic. So grateful that Tara is joining us today. Hi, Tara. Welcome, and I'll let you take it from here. Oh, and I think you're still muted, Tara.
There we go. I was double clicking on it, so I apologize.
No worries. We can hear you. So I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much for that great introduction, Lakeland. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. And again, just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk about a topic that's very important to me, transforming dementia care through music. The first thing I wanted to ask all of you to do, this is a QR code here. And if you'll take a moment to kind of screenshot it on your phone, there's two questions that I'm curious from all of you. The first question is, what is your favorite song? And the second question is, what music do people living with dementia listen to? So I'd love to know your answers to that question. I'm going to keep this slide up here for a moment or two. And as I start to see answers coming in, we'll then move on. So you can answer as we're doing the first part here, but I just want to make sure that I give you some time to answer those questions, and they are coming in now. So thank you so much. We will go back to these two questions. We'll revisit them during the presentation. So again, I thank you for your answers here. This is great. All right, wonderful. Okay, fantastic. All right, so I'll let those answers keep coming in. Thank you so much. Lakeland kind of already went through my whole bio, so I'm not really going to touch on this, but it's here if you want to read more. I have been a board certified music therapist. It's now going on almost 18 years. And my passion has always been in the dementia care community. And so that's what I've been doing for the last almost 18 years of my career. And so I'm really excited to share my knowledge and information with you so you can have a meaningful experience with the people that you care for. So today we're really going to focus on 3 areas. We're going to understand the benefits of music in dementia care. So identifying how and why music positively impacts our brains and enhances the well-being of older adults living with dementia. We're going to personalize music experiences. So you're going to learn to curate individualized music experiences that align with personal preferences, fostering meaningful connections and engagement in dementia care. And then lastly, we're going to apply practical music strategies. So I'm going to give you some different hands-on techniques and practical skills throughout that can help address specific challenges in dementia care so you can use music as an effective and person-centered tool. So that's really our goal for today. And before we get into all of that, I wanted to start with music. As a music therapist, I always like to include music in some way, shape, or form. And so today I thought a breathing activity would be a great place to start. There are so many breathing activities out there, but I really like box breathing because you can visually picture that box or that square. Sometimes people call it square breathing as well. And what I like about it is you can do it just about anywhere. So if you want to get comfortable in your chair, feet flat on the ground, and if you want to close your eyes, you're more than welcome to, but I'm going to leave that up to you. And with box breathing, you can practice this with or without music. You can do it while you're in line at the grocery store, while you're in traffic in your car, or even while you're providing or helping somebody with care. And so that's really why I wanted to share it with all of you today. So we're going to start by just breathing out all of that air that we hold on to. Sometimes we don't even realize we're holding that air. So let's just do one big exhale all together. Here we go. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to do this 3 times together. Here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and rest. 2, 3, 4. All right, here we go again. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and rest. 2, 3, 4. All right, last time together. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and rest. 2, 3, 4. So I don't know about all of you, but for me, that really grounds me. It really centers me and gets me more focused. So I hope that's done that for you as well. And it's something that you can use for yourselves, but you can also teach this to the people that you're providing care for and helping, if they're becoming overwhelmed. It's a great activity that you can use together as well as separately. So before we get into those 3 objectives, I did want to talk a little bit about music therapy, because I want you to understand what music therapy is. Being a board certified music therapist, if we are providing music therapy for clients, it's very specific in what it looks like. And so I wanted to highlight that first. Music therapy is a clinical and evidence-based practice, and we use music to accomplish individualized goals and objectives. So we work with clients to help support social, emotional, cognitive, physical, communication, musical, and spiritual needs. And we do this by assessing the strengths and needs of each client and then provide treatment, which can include creating, singing, moving, or listening to music. As a music therapist, we have 4 years of coursework, and that is followed by a 6-month internship. And that's about a combined total of at least 1,200 hours of clinical training, working with different groups of people. Our degrees require knowledge in psychology, medicine, and music. And once completed, we take the national board exam to obtain the credential MTBC, or Music Therapist Board Certified. So essentially, we're using different aspects of music to achieve individualized goals, both in and outside of sessions. And one of the things I love about music therapy is how personalized we can design a session depending on who is sitting in front of us. So this next slide, these are some of the many benefits and many goal areas of music therapy. It's multisensory, and so it can offer a non-pharmacological approach to treatment, and you do not need prior music education or training to receive the benefits of music therapy. So our goal areas really vary. This is not the only areas we work in, but there's been a lot of research to support these areas. So that's why I wanted to share these in particular. So we might focus on improving communication, reducing pain, encouraging wellness, stress management, expressing feelings and emotions, supporting physical rehabilitation, and reminiscence to enhance memory. And I've worked on all of those goal areas with my clients in dementia care. So where you might find us, who can benefit from our services. So again, these are not everyone, but these are the most common groups of people that you might find music therapists working with. For each group listed, we can work with an individual or in a group setting, and our sessions are tailored for the people in that group or for that individual. We work with all ages and stages of life, and I always say anywhere a nurse can work, we can work. So some of the areas you see there: special education, individuals on the autism spectrum, behavioral health, mental health, medical and hospital settings, military populations, people in correctional and forensic settings, pain management, and Alzheimer's and dementia care. So our next slide is just a short video that we're going to watch, and it is of me leading a group music therapy activity. And I'll talk more about the activity after we watch the video here. So I'll let you watch it, and then I'll talk a little bit about it.
Here we go. In the winter, the cold, cold winter, we sleep and read by the fire. In the winter, the cold, cold winter, we break the ice and build snowmen. Ooh, along the way. All right, now we've got we eat soup and chili. Here we go. In the winter, the cold, cold winter, we eat soup and chili. In the winter, the cold, cold winter, we drink hot cocoa and hot tamales.
All right, so that video was a group that I saw in a memory cafe. So it was a community group here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I live. And what I love about that type of activity, it's fill in the blank songwriting. It can be a really great group activity, especially if you're meeting a group for the first time. This was a very large group. Usually my groups are about 12 to 15 people. There were 50 people in the room. So there are about 25 caregivers, 25 people living with dementia. It's a quarterly group that meets throughout the year. And so for this larger group, this was a really great activity to get everybody engaged. Sometimes it's lighthearted like this, where we're talking about the seasons, but other times I work with clients with songwriting to express feelings, emotions, or frustrations that they're having. And so when we can create something new using something familiar, that can be really helpful for people living with dementia. And it is a really great way for them to express themselves. So that's just one example of what you might see in a music therapy session. So even though you're not trained and certified as a music therapist, there are lots of ways that you can use music in a meaningful way with people living with dementia. And so I want to start with music associations. Music accompanies our life both personally and culturally. It's present throughout our lives in many ways, including learning our ABCs, singing happy birthday, songs that your friends and family enjoyed, the first concert you attended, or the song you danced to at your wedding. And so each one of these examples connects us emotionally to a time and place. And when we hear those specific melodies, it can bring us right back. And that is what brings us to the first question that I asked you on that questionnaire, which is, what is your favorite song? And I've gotten over 200 responses from this. So thank you. So I want you to go back to that song. What was it, or what is it about that song when you hear it? What memories or feelings come to mind? Where were you when you first heard it? Was anyone there with you? And how does it make you feel when you hear it today? And I'm just going to read a couple of answers here. So I've got Anything Led Zeppelin, Real Love by Mary J. Blige, Drops of Jupiter by Train, Harvest Moon, We Are the World, Happy by Pharrell. And so with each one of those songs, we can all listen to it, and we're all going to have different reactions and emotions based on our past experiences. So it's really important to keep that in mind as we continue our conversation today. Music evokes emotion. And so engaging in music activates many areas of our brain, including those associated with memory and emotion. Music is the only sensory input that is processed in the entire brain simultaneously. And musical processing is generalized throughout our brain rather than localized in one area. So this is why you might find or experience that people who can no longer speak may be still able to sing. And this is partly why that's the case. And all of this can account for why people living with dementia will retain musical information longer and recall musical memories more clearly than non-musical memories. And so this next slide, I just wanted to show you this image. I think it's a really powerful image. It's of an MRI of our brains when they're at rest versus our brains when they're stimulated by music. So it just shows you how many different areas are lit up and activated and connected when we are engaged in music. And as we're engaged in music, our neurons are continuing to fire until a connection is made. And this is one of the many reasons music is so powerful for people living with dementia. So now that we know some of the reasons why music is powerful, I want to share the benefits of music with people living with dementia. Older adults have strong emotional responses, even when they're no longer verbally communicating or otherwise responding to typical methods of care. So if we can provide people living with dementia a way to access experiences and express a range of emotions, it can be a substantial improvement to their quality of life. And I wanted to share just one or two clinical stories to highlight that. I saw someone who had advanced dementia who was mostly nonverbal. I'd actually never heard them talk during our sessions, but it was clear that music was beneficial based on nonverbal cues. So smiling, direct eye contact, tapping toes, playing musical instruments with assistance. And one day in the middle of our session, he looked at me, smiled, and said, "I'm happy." And this is just a great example of how music helped facilitate a strong emotional response. Another referral that I received was for someone who was institutionalized all their life. So they were blind, partially deaf, and had intellectual disabilities and were in bed most of the day. And their case manager had tried everything and thought, let's see if music therapy could help and be beneficial. So since music therapy is multisensory, I was able to focus on tactile goals and objectives and use a variety of musical instruments. They could feel the vibrations of the drums. They could strum my guitar. I also brought in an auto harp, which is a folk instrument with strings that was very accessible for them. And I brought in a lot of handheld percussion instruments. So I have one I wanted to show you. I brought in a cabasa. This one provides a lot of tactile stimulation for folks and was really beneficial in their treatment. And they were actively engaged, participating and connecting meaningfully with me and the music, and that greatly improved their quality of life. So as we continue to talk about music benefits, music can help bridge the gap for those who are losing the ability to interact with others in the world around them. Music can help emotionally connect individuals who are struggling to maintain their identity and personality, and this allows them to connect with others as well as their own past experiences. So I wanted to share another clinical story that highlights these two benefits here. I saw someone in long-term care who was significantly younger than most of the other residents. He was probably late 50s, early 60s, and everyone else in that community was in their 80s and 90s. And so he was finding it very difficult to connect and engage meaningfully with the activities and the music that were being provided in the group setting. And music played an important role throughout his life, and he really craved that connection. His music was Prince, Hall & Oates, the Beatles, and anything disco. So his family was very supportive. They advocated to get him services. And when he engaged in music, he truly came alive. So a big smile, singing, laughing, playing music. Music was an old friend that he became reacquainted with. And it was a way his family could meaningfully interact with him. And so it was really important throughout his care and our time together. As we're talking about music benefits for people living with dementia, I also want to stress that it's so important that we define people we care for by their abilities and not by their diagnosis or their limitations. Live and recorded music can help assist with meaningful connections and show us what people are still capable of. Music can be a helpful resource to foster meaningful visits or moments throughout the day, and music can create positive interactions for others and with others, and provide additional care and support for people living with dementia and those that care for them. So when people living with dementia engage in music, here are some of the things that you will see, some of the benefits you will see. Increased socialization with peers and loved ones, creating positive engagement, providing stronger self-esteem and identity, being a great motivator for exercise, elicit better responses during reminiscent discussions, provide familiarity. Waiting for that slide, there it is. Fostering feelings of security, support positive changes on mood and emotional states, increase verbal responses, decrease on-the-go movement and frustration, and help with feelings of isolation and loneliness. So I see all of those things in my sessions. Sometimes I see one or two, sometimes I see 5 or 6. But even if you engage with music in a meaningful way with the people you care for, you're going to see these benefits along the way. So now that we know why music is powerful, and now that we know how it benefits people living with dementia, where do we start? And I want to go to that second question. So I'm bringing it up on my phone here, but that second question I asked all of you, what music do people living with dementia listen to? So I got classical several times, jazz, oldies, big band, all types, music from their youth, all kinds. So this was kind of a trick question. There's no wrong answer to this question. It is really about music preferences, and I cannot stress that enough. Music preferences is really important, and will really help set both you and the person you're caring for up for success when you're sharing music together. So there's really no wrong answer here. So when you are looking for music preferences and trying to find out someone's music preferences, the first place to start is ask that person directly. Can they tell you what their music preferences are? And I always like to start with yes or no questions and then expand to open-ended questions, yes or no or either or questions, I would say. And there are some examples here. So do you like classical music? Do you like rock and roll or country? Do you have any specific artists or bands you enjoy? And then what are your favorite songs? And when I asked some of you what your favorite song was, some people said, I'm not sure. And that's okay. That's a really hard question to answer. And that's another reason why I wanted to ask it to all of you. It's not always easy to come up with that song right away. So keep that in mind when you're asking these questions. If the person that you're working with is unable to tell you, or maybe they just can't think of anything in that moment, asking their family and friends can also be a great starting point. So anyone who has spent time with them presently or in the past. So if neither one of those are accessible, the next place to go is exploring their music collection. So sort through records, CDs, 8-track tapes, cassettes, digital playlists, whatever their music collection looks like. Can you or do you have access to it? And if you do, that in itself can be a really great activity to do with someone living with dementia. Sometimes having that tactile stimulation of holding the record and seeing the album cover, or looking at a CD jacket and going through the different pictures and the lyrics that are in that jacket, that can be a really meaningful experience for someone living with dementia. And it might also guide you on the type of music that they enjoy. So the next place to go, and some people said this in the questionnaire, is music that was popular when they were younger. There's been a lot of research on this topic and this age range. And the research suggests that any music from our late teens, early 20s, so we're thinking 18 to 25, that area of music stays with us throughout our lives. And I also like to include music from childhood and songs that family and friends listen to. And the reason I share that is because I had a client who, if I followed the math, looked at his age range, that 18 to 25, a song he loved, Sentimental Journey, did not fall in that age bracket. But for him, it was really important because his mother sang that song in the kitchen every day when she would cook. So it was a song we used at the end of every session because of how important it was to him. So this is a really great starting point, but I don't want you to get in a box and only focus on this music. I think this is a wonderful starting point, but also make sure to explore beyond that as well. So for example, to use music from when someone was younger, if they were born around 1939, they'd be around 86 today. So that would be 1958 would be the year where they're about 20 years old. So you could look up top rock and roll songs from 1958 if you knew they liked rock and roll music. So that's just an example of if you were following the music from late teens to early 20s with someone. So as all of you probably are doing day in and day out in your work, a lot of our work is being a detective and discovery and guess and check. And so you're doing that with music preferences as well to a certain degree. You want to share music from different decades and genres. So you could do the top country hits from 1960. You want to experiment with new music, similar in artist, genre, and decade to their preferred music. And Google is really your friend with this. So if you know someone loves the Beatles, you could Google or search, music similar to the Beatles in the early 60s and see what comes up and try some of those songs. So no matter what music you share, this is something that I think is really important. Document, write down, have a note on your phone, wherever you want to put this information. Document songs that have a strong response. So both positive and negative responses. And document the music that's directly mentioned by someone who's living with dementia for future reference. This is not only helpful for me if I was to come in and work with somebody as a music therapist, but it's helpful for anybody who is involved in their care. If this individual goes to the hospital and there's a way for them to listen to music, how great would it be if the nursing staff had a list of their favorite songs or had those digital playlists that they could access that could help them while they're at a hospital stay. If they're moving from home to a assisted living community, everyone in that community be really beneficial if they had this list. So it's something to keep in mind as you're exploring music preferences. All right. So now we know the power of music. We know why it benefits older adults. We've figured out what some of their music preferences are. So where do you go from there? You want to set yourself up for success as well as the person you're caring for. And that starts with your environment. So you want to find a comfortable and familiar space, somewhere quiet with minimal distractions. For some people, it can become challenging to receive and interpret multiple auditory signals at the same time. And this is especially true for people experiencing hearing loss or living with neurological changes like dementia. It becomes harder for people living with dementia to distinguish sounds in their environment, and that can contribute to overstimulation. And the example I like to give is if you're shopping at the holidays or if you're attending a loud concert. Sometimes it's too much and you become overwhelmed and you need a break. And you or I might be able to leave the room, leave the bar, go to a different store, go to our car. But for people living with dementia, they cannot always remove themselves for the environment. And this overstimulation can happen more frequently with them as well. So this is why, as a music therapist, one of the first things I do when I step into an environment is I assess the sound in my environment. I turn off the TV, I turn off the radio that might be nearby. If housekeeping is around the corner vacuuming, can I see how long they're going to be, or can they come back later? That's not always an option, but I try to minimize all of the competing sounds in the environment for that very reason. So next up, you want to be comfortable with the listening device you're using. Test and make sure it's working, that it's charged, that you're comfortable with troubleshooting. However you're going to share music, you want to be comfortable with whatever you're using to share. Things with technology, there's always hiccups, but if you can be as prepared as possible, it can be more of a stress-free environment for everyone. I recommend, if you want a shared music experience, to use a speaker over headphones. And that's because you want to be able to hear the music that the person living with dementia is also hearing. So a speaker is a really great way for that. Also, sometimes people living with dementia do not like wearing headphones, or if they have hearing aids, or if they have some other things going on, it might be a sensory thing for them. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, you could be in an environment where it's very chaotic, it's very loud. Noise canceling headphones could be beneficial in that environment. So if you want a shared experience, you could get a headphone jack splitter. So you're both plugging in your headphones, and then that way you can listen to the same music together. So those are a couple different options for you depending on your environment. You also want to make sure you start the volume at a low level, because you can always make the music louder. If you start the music too loud, you can create a startle response, and something that may have been beneficial, all of a sudden that person may want nothing to do with it, because now they're, in this heightened state, and they're uncomfortable because the music started so loud. So next up, observation. You really want to observe what's going on when you're playing the music. So someone who's enjoying music, as you might have guessed, here are the things you might see: smiling, singing, dancing, clapping, positive verbal statements, relaxed facial muscles and expressions. If someone does not enjoy the music, you're going to see the opposite of that. So some things you might see is a grimace, tense facial muscles and expressions, arms crossed, hands over their ears. Sometimes it's too loud. Sometimes it's music they don't want to hear, walking away from the music, and negative verbal statements. So if you've observed that everything is positive and things are going well with the music you're sharing, you also want to engage while the music is on. So instead of just pressing play and listening, what can you do while the music is playing? And so you want to encourage simple movements while listening together, and be sure you're moving with that person and mirror their movements. So if they start singing, if they start clapping, if they want to stand up and dance and are safe to do so, or if you can help them, do it. That it's so great. I love when I see people who want to get up on their feet during my music therapy group, and I encourage it, as long as the safety piece is there. We want people to enjoy the music in their own way. And if we're doing those movements along with them, it encourages that positive reinforcement. And the other thing I want to mention here is that people living with dementia can be both active listeners and passive listeners. So just because their eyes are closed and they're relaxed doesn't mean that they're not benefiting from the music. So I have folks in my group who are engaged, dancing, singing, talking to me about facts and history about the music. And then I have others who are more passive, and they're still enjoying it just as much and will tell me so at different moments in the session. So it's something to keep in mind. Not everybody has to be lively and engaged doing all the things. So now that you've engaged with music, after you're done listening, sorry about that. Let me go back one. After you're done listening, having some meaningful discussion can really help support the song you just shared. So using pictures that relate to the song can help start that discussion or spark discussion. So you've got Hello Dolly. It's Barbara Streisand from the movie. The next picture there is somebody sitting on a dock for Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And then you've got the Beatles, who are with Ed Sullivan. That was the first time that they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and All My Loving was one of the first songs that they shared. So as you're sharing these pictures after listening, you can ask some questions if that is something that that individual is able to do and comfortable doing. So again, start with yes or no questions, expand to open-end it when able. So thinking about those 3 pictures, you might say, did you ever see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show? Do you like being by the water? And what is your favorite musical? So again, you know your people best, the people you're caring for. And so you just kind of meet them where they're at as far as the discussion goes. After you've asked some questions like that, you can expand to questions about feelings when able or appropriate. And I say that because not everyone is comfortable talking about their feelings. I have clients who say, no, thank you. I don't want to talk about that. And you might not be comfortable asking someone about their feelings. So just know where your comfort level's at when you ask these types of questions. But you could ask, how does the music make you feel? How did you feel when you first heard a Beatles song? And there are very strong and specific answers to that. Some people loved the Beatles when they came out. Some people did not. Does the song remind you of someone special in your life? So you can, take it there as well. Again, you know your people best when you're asking these types of questions. So responses to music. This is kind of our last section before I'll open it up to questions. I think it's really important that we always meet the people we're caring for in the moment. Really let them lead the experience. Follow their verbal cues and nonverbal cues. And remember that it's okay if they do not want to listen to music or they don't like a particular song. You can always change the song. You can always reapproach and try again later. And so I wanted to share another story that kind of highlights this. Not only does it highlight music as a strong motivator, but I think it's a good example of those moments when you need to reapproach and redirect. So I saw someone who was living with dementia, and we worked individually together. I saw him weekly. We had very strong rapport. The minute he saw me, he knew it was time for music and would greet me with a big smile and say, "Hey girl, it's good to see you." So on this particular day, I arrived and he was in a heated argument with his roommate about dinner. It was clear that his roommate was trying to let him know it was not time for dinner, but he was adamant and he was insistent that he needed to get to the dining room right away. So I tried to redirect to music and he refused. I tried to offer a snack thinking he might be hungry. He refused. I asked if it would be okay if we went somewhere quiet to talk, and he begrudgingly said okay. So while we were walking to the room we use to share music in, I was able to engage him in conversation, let him vent about why he was upset. I validated how he felt, and I offered to get him a snack, and he said okay. So while I stepped out to get a snack, I softly played a song by one of his favorite bands, which was the Beatles, and one of his favorite songs was She Loves You. And when I came back with the snack, he was singing and dancing along. And I wanted to share this story because it's a reminder to all of us that it's okay if the person you're caring for refuses music, even if it's something they love. It's better to reapproach, redirect, change their environment, move to a different space. It's better to do all of those things than to argue or force the experience. The goal is to meet their needs in the moment and try and use music to support that when able. And if we can follow them on their journey and observe their verbal and nonverbal cues, like I mentioned earlier, it will provide us with a lot of information on how best to move forward and share music with that person. So when we're thinking about responses to music, crying and sadness are okay when listening to music. You want to be sure that you're supporting that person in the moment and don't try to just make them happy. A lot of times I've encountered staff members with good intentions where someone will become tearful at a song and they'll say, "Oh no, don't cry. Be happy. Music is happy." But the truth is, we all experience multiple emotions at the same time, especially when we hear music. And that goes back to why music is so powerful. And that's true for people living with dementia as well. And in that moment, they may not be able to verbalize what they're feeling. So that emotion may be the only way that they can express what they're feeling. So be aware of that. I always remind my clients that there is no wrong way to feel when it comes to music. What I will say is you do want to seek additional support if feelings of sadness are overwhelming or if they have trouble processing something. If you notice something isn't quite right or they're becoming increasingly upset every time the music is on, can you consult with a music therapist? Can you reach out to your care team, whether that's the social worker, your doctors, even the activities director at the community? They know so much about what's going on. There could be some bigger things at play there. So that's just something to keep in mind. This last part, before I open it up to questions, I feel very passionate about talking about this. I do not think it's talked about enough. And I think it's important that we're aware that you can have an adverse reaction to music. A lot of times I'll hear, "Oh, there are no side effects to music." And for the most part, that's true. And you're not going to have side effects like you would with a medication, but you can experience an adverse reaction to music. And I just want to give you the full picture when you're sharing music with people living with dementia. Music experiences are not universal to everyone. And it's important to recognize that people living with dementia can have adverse reactions to music. We hear a lot of amazing examples about the power of music, how it can be used in a meaningful way. And I've just shared a lot of them with you. And that's amazing. I'm so excited that this information is being shared and used with the dementia community. But it's also important that we recognize that as we strive for person-centered care, not all music experiences are going to be positive for all people. So I really want you to keep that in mind. And as we're thinking about that, it's important to be aware of and know what to look out for. So I just wanted to give you 3 quick examples of what that might look like if you're sharing music with someone. So listening to preferred music alone. People listening to preferred music with headphones on or if them by themselves, it's a more solitary activity. You may know that they love hymns. They've told you they loved hymns. It's documented, the hymns that they love. They're listening to their hymns playlist. But in that moment, they hear Danny Boy and it connects them back to their son's funeral. So if they're listening by themselves, they may feel isolated. It may become difficult to process their emotions. And this experience could cause agitation, depression, tearfulness, frustration, and other emotions that seem to come out of nowhere from the perspective of the caregiver. So you might walk back into the room you left and they were happy and calm and alert, and you come back and now they're visibly upset. It could be the music. So it's something to keep in mind when you're assessing what is going on with the person you're caring for. The next example I wanted to give is becoming overstimulated or disinterested in music. And one of the ways this can happen is when music is constantly playing with no breaks. So music that may have been beneficial can lose its meaning and connection if it's being played on repeat or consistently throughout the day, or even being played too loudly. Silence and quiet is just as important as having that music on. And I've sometimes walked into a client's room where they have 1 CD of Motown hits and it's on repeat and it's being played all day, So the music that may have been important to them loses its meaning and they may no longer want to hear music because of it. So something to keep in mind. And then lastly, strongly encouraging someone to listen to music when they're not interested. And I've kind of touched on this already, but if you strongly encourage someone to listen to preferred music because you know they like it. So going back to Motown and thinking about the Supremes and the Four Tops and the Temptations, that's their music, but they want nothing to do with it in that moment. reapproach, redirect, possibly try again either later that day or later that week. And the reason you want to do all of that is because you do not want to create negative associations or rapport with something or someone that typically provides a positive experience. You know, music is something that's meant to be a positive, enjoyable, meaningful experience for you to share with the person you're caring for. So you don't want negative associations and negative rapport between the two of you. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind when you're sharing music. So the last couple slides I have here are some resources for all of you, and then we're going to open it up for questions. But the first resource I have for you is how you find a music therapist. So the first thing I will say is you can reach out to me. I'm on social media at Harmony and Dementia. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website, www.harmonyanddementia.com. You can reach out to me. I frequently connect people with music therapists in their area. I also provide telehealth services. So sometimes that's an option for folks if you don't have a music therapist in your area, or if you'd like to work with me, but you don't live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I like directing people to the Certification Board of Music Therapists, to CBMT, to find a music therapist, because they are the organization that gives us our credential and make sure that we're up to date. So every 5 years, we have 100 hours of continuing education that we need to do to make sure we're in good standing. So when you click on the tab, Find a Therapist, you can search by name, you can search by location, and you can search by certification number. So if you put in my name right now, if you went to the website, you'd see I just recertified. I believe 2025 is the new 5-year cycle for me. So you'll see that I'm in good standing. You'll see where I'm located. So it's a great place if you're curious if there are music therapists in your area. I've already really highlighted, and Lakeland did as well, highlight my services. So I'm not really going to go into this, but I provide group and individual services, telehealth and in-person. I provide education like this to the community. I do webinars, I do trainings, I consult with people. If you know of an organization or work for an organization where you think a training like this would be helpful, or something that's tailored to your employees or your the people you work for, reach out for me. I've got a referral tab on my website, and I would be happy to let you know how we can work together. And then lastly, another resource I wanted to share with all of you. Several years ago, I co-wrote a book called Music, Memory, and Meaning. And you can find this on Amazon. It's also on my website. And it is a practical guide to create meaningful music connections. And so the book is divided into 3 parts. The first part is a lot of what we talked about today. It also includes a questionnaire of questions you can ask to document someone's music preferences, and talking about why music is powerful, how to set yourself up for success. So some of those things are highlighted in there. The second part is 15 research-based and professionally reviewed playlists. So from our work and other music therapists, we took a survey, and the 15 to 20 most popular and engaging songs from early 1900s through 1970s, including rock and roll, country, folk music, lots of different playlists in there. And then the third part, if there's a music note next to one of the songs in the playlist, like In the Still of the Night would be on the rock and roll playlist, we then give you an engaged listening discussion. So it breaks it down into who wrote the song, maybe a fact or two about the song, what you can do while listening, and questions you can ask. So if it feels overwhelming to create and start all of this on your own, this is a great starting point. The other thing I'll say about playlists, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. Sometimes it's overwhelming to create your own playlist. Now on all the digital platforms, you can search, the top Beatles hits playlist, or Supreme's playlist, Prince, his top 5 songs. And so sometimes you can share an already created playlist with the person you're caring for. Observe, see what songs they enjoy, and then take those off of that playlist and start building your own. So it's another good starting point if you feel overwhelmed to do all of this on your own and start from scratch. So some final thoughts as we're wrapping up and saving some time for questions is that music can be an excellent option for people living with dementia, especially when other methods of care have not been successful. Music can help bridge the gap when there are challenging moments in the day, or if visits with family and friends feel awkward or uncomfortable. And music will bring focus, foster meaningful connections, and create engagement opportunities for people living with dementia and those they are closest to. So this last slide here just gives you our contact information, and that QR code that's linked to a survey. It's just a couple questions. It only gets sent to me. It's sent anonymously, so you don't have to leave your name or email. And it just lets me know how I did. How can I improve? What do you want to hear more of? That sort of a thing. So if you have some moments at the end of your day or the end of this talk, I would be so grateful if you filled that out. But I just want to thank all of you. I'm looking at the number. We have over 600 people tuning in live, and I just want to thank you for joining. I hope this information has been helpful, and I hope it encourages you to use music or continue to use music in a meaningful way with the people that you're caring for.
Thank you so much, Tara. Victoria, I think you're on mute, so you might need to come off mute.
So sorry about that. You know, it's been how long, and we still have this issue sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Happens to all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Tara, so much. That was a great presentation. We've already gotten some great feedback, and we have a lot of questions here.
Sure.
So hopefully we'll have time to get through a few of them, and I'll go back and I'll start from the beginning. Would music have the same benefits on someone with a TBI who struggles with their memory?
Yes. Yeah, it very much would. There are music therapists who work in rehab settings, music therapists who work in the hospital. There's a lot of research about even using music to help regain some of that movement. So if they're having trouble with their right side or their left side, the same if somebody had a stroke, or there's so much research out there. So I always say, if you're in a hospital setting, if you're in a rehab setting, ask if there's a music therapist, because sometimes there is, but they may not be working on that floor or in that unit, and they may be able to help the person you're caring for. But yes, I would encourage you to try music with them as well.
Great. That kind of ties into one of our other questions is, have you ever used music for patients in hospice during the dying process?
Yes, I didn't, there's so much I can talk about and I wanted to pare it down. I work with older adults and I always say healthy and well older adults through end of life. So I have worked in hospice. I've been bedside. I've worked with folks who are actively dying. Music is one of the first things we respond to in the womb. It's one of the last things we respond to at the end of life. So it can be very important in end of life care. Some of the client stories I gave you examples of today, I followed them through their end of life journey. And if you have a music therapist working with someone for several years, it becomes that much more important when they're at end of life, because not only do they recognize my voice, but they also, I know what music really speaks to them and can be really helpful in that moment of transition.
Great, thank you. That sounds amazing.
You're welcome.
We also have a question. This person doesn't know exactly what this is called, but wants to know if you've ever heard of the approach of meeting the mood by tempo of music. So if a person living with dementia is agitated, start with an upbeat tempo and gradually change the music with it to a slower tempo. Apparently, this method can help to calm the mood. It is the opposite of what you might think of starting with calm music. So have you heard about that? Can you expand on it?
Yes, it's in music therapy, we are taught that. And of course, I'm blanking on what it's called. Like, it has a specific name, but it's meeting someone in the moment. The reason I didn't speak on it is because I think you really need to be educated in how to do it. So as a music therapist, with live music, I can change the key, I can change the tempo, I can change the dynamics all in the moment. So I worked with someone who was agitated, who was calling out. Nursing did all the things that they know how to do. I worked in full-time in long-term care. They brought me in. It was a client I was very familiar with. I knew their music preferences. I started with a more fast-tempoed song, and I was able to gradually bring him to a desired mood state. I would not recommend you do this if you don't have the training as a music therapist, because a lot of things, it can go a lot of different ways. So you need to have the training on how to process music with someone. You need to have the training on, okay, if this isn't working, how do I pivot? It's a little bit harder to do it with recorded music because you can't change the tempo. You can't change the key if you need to change the key to a minor key or a major key. There are so many different things as music therapists that we do, that we're trained to do, that I think are very important, but I wouldn't want to share that with someone and say, you go out and do that yourself without additional training, if that makes sense. So yes, that method is great. That method is very helpful in dementia care, but I would just err on the side of caution with that if you don't have experience with it.
Okay, well, thank you. That makes sense. Lakeland, feel free if you want to. I know that you were reading the questions too, so if there's something you want.
And I just saw someone say the ISO principle. Thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue, and at 3 a.m. I would have remembered that that's what it was called. So Elisa, thank you for saying it. I just could not think of it off the top of my head. Thank you so much.
Teamwork, everyone, teamwork.
Yes.
Another question we have, is it the influence of novel association that proving such a strong bond more than the music, or do you think it's the sensory abundance that music provides that influences the brains of those with people living with dementia?
I think it can be all of the above. Honestly, I've worked with individuals. I worked with a client who had MS. And when I saw her, she no longer had movement from about her neck down, but cognitively was still able to really engage with me. And she expressed that she was losing her memories in life and things that were important to her. She could hear a song. White Christmas was one of her favorite films. She could hear Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby, singing one of their songs, or even watching the video of Sisters, the clip. I would do a lot of visual video short clips with her, and she would have 4 or 5 personal memories associated to it. So we created a memory book so she could revisit those memories as she was losing them. And so people could share memories with her. So sometimes music is important in someone's life, and that's why the connection is strong. And other times it's the rhythm, it's the melody, it's the lyrics. It could be a new song. I recently taught 3 Little Birds, a Bob Marley song, to a group of people living with dementia, and none of them knew the song. And they learned the song. We learned the melody and the lyrics together. So, there's so many different reasons why that might be the case, but I think it's all of those things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we may have time for 2 more questions. Lakeland,
Okay.
I want to give you an opportunity if you see something here that you really want us to address.
Well, I just think that there's a couple questions about people who maybe don't speak English as or maybe English as a second language, or when somebody is living with dementia, they might connect back to a language that they spoke as a child. So do you see that come up in music too?
Yes.
Music from other cultures?
Yes. So you do. And I have an example that happened earlier this week. I was working with someone, telehealth, who is native to Germany and still can converse with me in English. Polka was her preferred music. We shared Beer Barrel Polka together. It's one she specifically requested. She sang it in German while I sang it in English. Mm-hmm. So there are opportunities like that where I would say, I will say my polka repertoire is not as vast because of the area I've worked in the United States. I haven't worked with people where polka music has been present, but now I'm brushing up on my polka. I'm doing a lot of research as a music therapist. So if you're sharing music with someone, one of the questions in the questionnaire in the book, and a question that's in my assessment that I ask everyone, is where somebody grew up. It's very important. Where did somebody grow up? Where did they spend the majority of their time? If they lived in another country, how old were they when they moved here to the United States? That sometimes is a really important question. And then what music did they enjoy? Because even though this client loves polka, loves German classical composers, she also really likes 50s and 60s music, like crooners and that more style of music, Mitch Miller, things like that, because of when she moved here to the United States and the music that was popular here. So yeah, I would say it can be very important in music. And I sometimes too, if I do not speak their language, Can you find a music therapist who's a native speaker? You can't always do that, but sometimes a caregiver can be helpful. So if a caregiver or somebody important in their life, the person living with dementia, if they speak the language, sometimes that can be helpful. And I've worked in that setting as well with folks.
That's so interesting. I think music, it's just so versatile. And you've definitely shown us today, like, so many different ways you can engage with music. And something that is so universal. And we all usually, most of us, connect with music. And so I'm just so grateful that you shared all of this wonderful information with us today. I know I learned a lot, and just based on the comments, people have been learning a lot, and I've really enjoyed this presentation as well. So thank you so much, Tara, for everything.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I see a lot of questions that maybe we didn't get to as well. You can always reach out to me on social media. I'm happy, to answer questions that way as well. And maybe I'll do a little series if several of you send me questions. But I would be happy to speak with people. I'm all about educating folks on how to have a meaningful experience and how to do it in a beneficial way that also gives you the education behind it. So you kind of know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Great, thank you. I echo those sentiments. Great presentation. Reach out to Tara if you had a burning question that we didn't get to. I know there was a few people that asked about Medicare, if music therapy is covered by Medicare. If you could answer that real quick.
It's not an easy answer. The main answer is no. What I will say is what's going on currently is changing a lot of things. So there's a lot of unknown right now with legislation. But before all of this that's happened in the last several weeks, Medicare for music therapy in dementia care specifically. I know some people who are on waiver programs who music therapists work with, younger adults and things like that, where there is some assistance there. But music therapy in dementia care, it is not widely covered by Medicare. And even the dementia guide program, I have kind of explored that. That's something where Medicare is giving some more funding to people who are caring for people living with dementia. I have an organization here who's on the list of guide providers. And unfortunately we're not listed as one of the therapies at the moment. I know it's a trial program that's going to go on for several years. But yeah, so the short answer is no. I will say for funding, grant funding, sometimes federally grant funding, but also local grants as well, endowments. I have people who have donated services, organizations. I'm currently working with Hilarity for Charity, and we're doing music wellness sessions. They're not traditional music therapy, but just using music in a meaningful way. It's 6 sessions, 30 minutes, 6 sessions that they apply for this grant. And if they're approved, then they get to work with me via telehealth. So there are organizations out there. If you work for one of those organizations, I'd love to do more grant programs like that, just finding the right opportunities. And then a lot of my work is private pay at this time. So I like to do things like this for free because I want the information to be out there for caregivers since they cannot always access services. And I try to do free services in the community with the Alzheimer's Association and different organizations as well for that reason.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Hilarity for Charity is a great organization. They also acquired the youth movement against Alzheimer's. So we have some great intergenerational work going on there. Check them out. Thank you all for joining us today, for staying a little bit longer. But we do hope that you're leaving with some valuable insights and some practical strategies to create meaningful connections through music. I want to give a special thanks to Tara and Lakeland for sharing their expertise, and to Harmony and Dementia and Home Instead for making this webinar possible. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out at institute@asaging.org. I did see someone say that they were not on social media. Tara does have her email, and Lakeland as well, if you want to email them with any additional questions. And mark your calendars for the next webinar. It's Veterans Assistance Benefits, what to know and how to apply. That's going to take place on May 7th. You can also check out our website for other webinars in the coming months. We truly appreciate your time and participation. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks for sticking in there, hanging with us. Bye.
Bye.